Well, good evening or good afternoon or whatever the time or time zone you may be listening to or watching this in. This is your intrepid duo here at the Sober Atheist podcast. And we've reached episode 18, which I'm going to refer to as a flash or slash emergency episode. We're in a bit of a situation here, and the title of this particular episode, episode 18, is Atheism, Recovery, and the Question of Human Evil. And in the description you'll see up about this, it says, pure human evil has manifested itself here in the United States. How can an atheist in recovery deal with it? John, Huey, and Michael Tingley discuss this dire situation. I think this qualifies as a dire situation, does it not?
I think it does.
Yeah,
if
right,
you're awake
right.
and paying attention at all.
Right. And this is not a political podcast, because I think Michael and I both have come to the conclusion we're beyond politics, right?
Yes. It's
this had nothing to do with politics. It has to do with pure human evil. And, masochist that I am, I have been in my semi-retired state instead of, working on some other things this last week or two. I've been watching events as they unfold, and I'm continually seeing these people show up. I saw this woman show up in the White House briefing room the other day, this young blonde lady who I think I sort of out of trauma have blocked her name. This young blonde lady who's taken over the press podium in the briefing room at the White House. And she shows up with her pale white, like vampire shade of skin. And, the blonder than blonde hair. And around her neck is this giant cross, this sort of silver thing around her neck. And a lot of them are like small, but this one was really big, being broadcast to the world. Looked like somebody was sending a message, right?
No, indeed.
Yeah.
It wasn't subtle. It wasn't subtle.
I could come up with maybe a Lou Reed pin or a Baudelaire pin or something like that. But it wouldn't be Baudelaire would probably be too obscure for a lot of them. But, I don't wear anything on my thing. We don't have any stuff around our neck here. You got suspenders, right?
Actually, I should be wearing my Eugene V. Debs pin.
You could be, or your Clarence Darrow T-shirt or something, Speaking of, old dead atheists, I would maybe favor I don't want to say that. Well, maybe a Trotsky one, but I wouldn't say that. Okay, yeah. I wouldn't wear that because it's not political. We're not political here,
right?
But we are in a zone where people are making these statements about how moral and above the norm they are, above the political norm, above the social norm, because they're animated by the proposition. Well, their maximum leader, of course, was saved by the providence of Jesus when he turned his head and just got the little ding on the ear. And that was all about, how somebody came down and providentially took care of him. So I thought I would start looking at and they're always talking about this God thing. And it's been a while since I've looked up my Bible verses, Michael. When I was a little tiny kid before age 12, I used to know them pretty well. And I did take a Bible course way back in graduate school. And I have my old American Bible Society volume on the shelf. But I have to admit that I did it the modern way and looked up. I Googled me some Jesus. Okay? And I got some Jesus for you here tonight, okay? And probably going to go on too long with this, and you're going to get exasperated with me.
Well, I'll interrupt you if
Just
I have to.
bear with me. Bear with me. Bear with me. Here, okay. On the subject of peace, from a little thing called John 14:27, peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid. That's pretty good. I don't want to be afraid.
Mhm.
Been pretty damn afraid this week. Okay, here's another one. Matthew 22:39. This is a great one. You're gonna love this one, Michael. Love your neighbor as yourself.
There you go.
How's that one?
Mhm.
That one's pretty good, I
Yep.
thought. Right? Okay.
A lot of people seem to skip that one, huh?
Well, it gets even better. Okay,
Yep.
gets even better, and Matthew's filled with this stuff. Okay, you get Matthew 25:40. Okay, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. That even bears repeating. Whatever you did for one of these brothers and sisters of mine, you do the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Okay? Love each other just as much as I've loved you. Okay? There's more great little nuggets in there. Forgive others their transactions. Father will forgive you. Okay? And to top it off, here's a real famous one. Okay? I almost forgot about this one. If you want to be perfect, go sell your possessions and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. That's the ones with the things around their neck, right? I wonder if Musk is gonna. This one. Sell your possessions and give to the poor. What's up with that? Considering what we're going to talk about this hour. Now, I got so excited, right? I dug a little bit deeper into this holy book, all right? And there's other stuff, wonderful stuff in the holy book. Corinthians is a good one, okay? In Corinthians 13:4 is said, love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. Love is it's not proud. Okay. And Colossians. I love that word. Isn't that wonderful? Colossians. That almost sounds like you're down one of them little towns down the south somewhere where they're talking about Colossians. Okay. Colossians 3:14. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. How's that one? That's pretty good. And I've just got one more for you because I know I'm trying your patience here.
Yes, you are.
You heathen, you. Okay. Trying to give you the word from the mountaintop. And there's other ones here I dug up, but this one struck me. This is from the book of Titus 2:2. Okay. This is fantastic. Teach the older men to be temperate, worthy of respect, self-controlled, and sound in faith, in love and endurance. That sounds pretty good. Teach the older men. Okay? I mean, what is this shit? All right?
Well,
I
this is
mean,
all good shit. It's all good shit.
Right, right. Oh,
The
I'm not saying
problem
that.
is
all.
the people that are waving that around and wearing those crosses are
Yeah.
doing the opposite. They're the exact opposite of all of those
What
things that
they
they've been
say.
taught.
Right, right, right. Which brings us to our topic, right? Which is, I mentioned this to a couple of people and they said, oh, you're biting off way more than you can chew, which I'm sure is, substantially true. But the nature, right, and parameters of human evil. Why is that important to the likes of us? atheist or whatever type of non-believer you call yourself in recovery from alcoholism or addiction? Well, it's very simple. If evil is in fact loose upon the land, which I am absolutely certain that it is manifest, it is there, it's palpable.
Yes.
This stuff, and it's been correct. I think you and I have both been affected by this. I've noticed us both have a little bit of wibbly wobblies as a result of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but not to the extent where we're going to go get loaded or, take a little Russian dive out a window. There'll be enough people falling out of windows as this thing progresses, but we're not going to jump, and we'll be a
Well,
few.
the thought is there, though.
Thought might be there,
there.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
the intention and the idea that, this stuff is so intense, so difficult, so evil, right?
yeah,
That I've seen stuff coming across on some of the Facebook pages these last days where people are truly in despair,
yeah.
truly losing
Huh?
any sort of bearings, because what has happened to us is that in a very calculated way, we have been overwhelmed with negativity.
Right.
We've been overwhelmed with mendacity. We've been overwhelmed with so many lies told with such conviction that have so many deleterious effects on so many lives that we can't stand it.
Yeah.
Let me give you a thought I had today. I'm a proud recipient of Medicare, right? You're familiar with Medicare, I believe.
I am indeed. Yes.
Yeah, you may be even an old man person too with
I
Medicare,
am.
right? You got
Yes.
Medicare. And I'm a big fan of, I'm going to say something else that's going to get them all upset. I'm a big fan of socialized medicine, right? Which means medicine paid for by the state to cover people in need of medical care without regard to their ability to pay.
Right.
Now, we're far from that. You go to certain countries like Canada or England or Sweden or Germany or France or Italy or any one of a number of other civilized places.
Almost
They
every
don't
country
ask
such
you,
shit.
they have no desire to even ask you or know whether you can pay or not, because that's not relevant, because society takes care of that.
Mhm.
But here it's a very different story, and you've got to jump through all sorts of hoops to get what assistance is available to you. Personally, I'm rather happy with my situation at Kaiser Permanente, which Kaiser Permanente, Capitol Hill, happens to be 2.5 blocks from the U.S. Capitol and 2 blocks from the Senate office building where you saw that lunatic confirmation hearing for that vaccine denier today. And which was very poorly conducted. We're not going to talk about that. That's a different story. But very close. I go down there very close to the U.S. Capitol to get my medical treatment. It's a big, giant building. It's filled with all kinds of really good doctors and lots of wonderful high-tech machines and a pharmacy and a lab. Actually, I got to go there on Saturday for an ultrasound of some part of me or another. Right? I'm there all the time. And I love the fact that it's about as close to socialized medicine as you can get in the United States, because everybody is sort of grouped together, and at various times you have to wait in line. All right. It's not like the concierge boutique doctor I had years ago in Georgetown. All right. It's different now for me than it was years ago. And I like it, right? But I find myself standing in line with They have a large Medicare contract, which I am under there, right? They also, because it's a very close to inner city location, they have a giant Medicaid contract there,
Sure.
right? And I'd say 30 to 40, maybe even as much as 50% of the folks are below retirement age, but they are Medicaid recipients, which is care given to the least of the people that are least able to pay.
Right.
You go through a certain process and get to a certain level economically that you and I have never gone to, but you get to a certain level. The government does give you some level of health security.
Yeah.
And I'm like this old white privileged man that lived not a gilded life, but a really, very secure middle class life. I'm standing there with people who are maybe in their 40s or 50s that through diabetes have lost a limb, all right? Or through, severe drug issues or whatever issues have gone through in life are obviously suffering with oxygen thingies and all this other stuff. Far more serious medical problems 20 or even 30 years younger than me than I'm facing now, right?
Right.
Serious shit, all right? And I'm standing in line with them at the pharmacy or at the laboratory or wherever, urgent care, whatever. And these people, it struck me, they actually want to take what little these people have
Now, which
away.
people are talking about taking it away? What?
These people that were elected by the majority
Okay.
of our less than mentally
The
capable.
Republican-dominated government.
Right, but I don't want to talk too much. Yes,
Yes.
those people.
Yes.
Okay, those people.
As opposed to those people you were standing in line with.
Right. As opposed to those people you saw at the inauguration, some of whom supposedly at one time were liberals, standing behind who, where even the members of Congress weren't in it. Most of the members of Congress were in another room because there wasn't enough space in the rotunda, right? Most of the members of Congress were in Statuary Hall, but they're in the rotunda, lined up right behind he who shall not be named. It's almost like that program I don't want to talk about. I get to upset if I even think of his name or his face or hear his voice. Is the richest people in the whole fucking world other than Vladimir Putin. Putin is the only one that's richer than any of them. If Putin had been there, it would have been perfect because they would have had them all. Okay, they were missing a very important one, which was Trump's.
And many of them wearing crosses around their necks.
Well, I don't know about Zuckerberg. No, Musk though, the day before, as we saw, before they started rolling out things that could take things away from these folks that I stand in line with.
Yeah. Cutting the benefits from those people standing in line at the hospital.
He was in the Verizon Center, whatever they call it, in downtown Washington, because it was too fucking cold to do anything outdoors. And he quite famously gave 2 Nazi salutes.
Right.
Before a day or so later getting on the plane to go to Germany to express his admiration and support for the extreme right elements in Eastern Germany who are agitating over there. But those Nazi salutes were another thing that boiled it down for me. It ain't politics when Nazis are involved. Nazis were beyond politics. There was no politics in dealing with a Nazi after about 1836. Okay? Because they just started murdering people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the richest man in the world is giving a Nazi salute in front of a screaming horde of ignorant, vile, uh, uh, racist, misogynist people who were cheering their heads off for the Nazi salute that was being given to the victory of their maximum leader. Okay? So, what's a person to do when they see that? Okay? Your mind starts going in all kinds of directions that are really very negative. And if you are subject to any sort of stress that may turn you in the direction of self-immolation or self-harm, the it starts to progress, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, how the hell are we going to deal with this, Mike? What are we going to do? How are we going to manage this?
Well,
Personally, I'm not
yeah.
talking about
Yeah.
how are we going to handle this. I'm concerned. I'm very concerned because long term, how are we going to deal with it? What we going to do, homie? What's going on? All right.
Well, for me, it brings up the word, the concept hopelessness. Uh,
Hopeless.
and that's where I have gone in my darkest times, in my addictions, thinking that it was all hopeless. There was no hope. And watching what's happening now and seeing, like you said, this display of human evil, people intentionally trying to cause harm and suffering of other people. I mean, it's an intentional causing of harm and suffering. That is so discouraging, and it gives me such a sense of hopelessness, because I can't change those people's minds. They're set. They're going to do what they're going to do. So for me, hopelessness is a serious trigger with regards to my addictions. I mean, I can't help but go there in my head. If it's all become so hopeless, then what should I do? What can I do about it? I mean,
Well,
in my past, I've always just gone into a bottle of booze or a bag of dope. I mean, that's always been my answer to that sense of hopelessness. So it's very difficult right now to stand by and see this happening, because it is a trigger for me. So I can imagine the millions of other people who are struggling the same way. It's all very discouraging, and that sense of hopelessness you can't help but let that creep in once in a while if you're paying attention.
we
So
we
what
we
do we do?
what do we do? Uh, I It's very difficult.
It
Okay.
is.
All right. I mean, there's certain things like stuff's going on every day. I saw the thing about the 30,000 beds in Guantanamo he's going to put up today. Yesterday, it was something else. It was the taking away the AIDS medication. They actually were,
Yeah, it's all evil,
they
man.
issued an order to stop giving AIDS medications to the very poorest people in Africa,
Yeah.
and who overnight, though, someone I think impressed upon them that if they failed to give the AIDS medication to the poorest people in Africa, these many hundreds of thousands of people, by the way, 26 million lives have been saved since, and I have to give credit where credit is due. George Bush too, was the one that really leaned in to start pouring the meds into Africa, and the estimate is that something like 26 million lives have been saved by pouring in the latest and most effective AIDS medication. But overnight, someone informed these hideous excuses. I won't even call them, well, I don't even know what to call them, but these creatures that were doing this, it sort of informed them that if these folks did not get their AIDS medications, there would be the type of AIDS flare-ups that could very well result in new mutations of the AIDS virus that could evade the current medical state of the art. You get a mutation that would overwhelm the current generation of AIDS medications, and some Westerners might get nailed with this thing. And overnight they did rescind that particular order, and they said they would start. For now, they said it was great.
Yeah.
They said, for now we will release this absolutely critical AIDS medication to the very poorest people in Africa. It just boggles the fucking mind. So what am I going to do with that? The Guantanamo, I start thinking, well, shit, they probably, hey, Michael, maybe they got a bunk for you and I. Are they going to bunk us in the same spot? And once they start listening to the Sober Atheist podcast, maybe they'll have bunks for us down there in Cuba. We'll find ourselves on one of them transport planes down there to a beautiful island. And
there's probably at least an FBI file somewhere. So
how fuck me? I don't know. I mean, I'm hoping we're so tiny and insignificant. It'll take them we'll probably be gone before they ever get around to us. But your mind starts going to shit like that. And what do you? I mean, that's just crazy shit. It's just crazy shit. It's crazy making.
I can't imagine having the ability to help and choosing not to, instead to choose to cause harm instead of helping people. I don't. It just doesn't compute with me. I don't understand.
It's right there with looking at making it more difficult for these poor people standing in line down at Kaiser to get their diabetes
What's
medication.
the point of causing harm instead of helping? I don't get
insulin, the price of insulin is already skyrocketing. The level of care they're talking about, making these people prove something about their level. I mean, it just, but fuck. All right. How do we stay alive in the middle of this?
Yeah.
And at 38 plus now years sober, I am not going to let this circumstance overwhelm me and put me in a situation of self-harm. I haven't been thinking about using anything or taking, although I did, the word Xanax did pop in my mind, a little, I don't know, somebody, if I had a little vial.
Your heart's probably sending you messages, subtle messages that you need something.
I make one little phone call to my doctor and tell him where my headspace is, and there'll be a script waiting for me, with probably Ambien and Xanax and the rest.
If not a house call.
Shit. Yeah, no, I do it. I'll do telemedicine. By the way, they're gonna get all these folks without internet on telemedicine. That'll be interesting. But to cut the cost. So you phone in your diabetes. So it's like, how do I deal at 38 years into this thing? How do I
38 years sober, you say?
Yeah. 38 plus years sober.
Right.
And having a better time in life in general, in terms of my circumstances, my relationships, my family. Economics could always be better, but that's my fault that I don't have more effing money. But there's no big issues there, other than, not being able to stay at the Ritz in London. I can't afford no Ritz in London, poor me. But, the fact of the matter is that uh, life is, in fact, at age 76, better than it's ever been before on one level. As soon as I start thinking about others, things go downhill. Can I be of assistance to others? Uh, yeah, I submit that maybe what we're doing here is an attempt to be of assistance to others. Some people may have already freaked out and turned this fucking thing off because it's just too disturbing to think about, this evil stuff. But naming evil, calling things what they are, and logically progressing to figure out a way to deal with it as a person is part and parcel of our atheism and what we're about here on this podcast, trying to do this series of discussions about our lives on planet Earth, given our circumstances, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can't dig that much deeper than that as far as personal redemption. God, where's this? My Bible verses here. Yeah. I got all carried away here, but about just maintaining some sort of stability as a person. Because if we go nuts, we can't do anything.
Yeah, and also I'd like to just throw in there that all of this happening has reinforced my atheism, has reinforced and made me feel good, even better about being an atheist. When I see that the religious right and people who so-called believers are doing all these evil things, it makes me feel good that I am not one of them. I don't have that faith that is okay with doing harm and causing suffering. So for me, being an atheist, it's been reinforced now. I feel stronger about being an atheist because I none of that has anything to do with me. That's not my motivation in life. You know, I don't want to cause harm and suffering. And so I don't want to belong to an organization that endorses causing harm and suffering, you know, and then the sobriety. I mean, I cannot help but think that some of those people that are doing these evil things have got to be under the influence. I mean, what, you know, most of the people that I have known who have been busted for crimes, because I used to teach in the prison system here, they were under the influence of something anytime they committed a crime. So for me, I cannot help but think that some of these people have got to be under the influence because they're making some really bad decisions and they're making evil decisions like somebody who's under the influence does. So again, I feel reinforced. I feel my sobriety being reinforced as well as my atheism under the circumstances. I feel strengthened in those in my beliefs or my lack of beliefs have been reinforced through all of this. And so that's how one way I'm dealing with it. You know, I'm not going to the liquor store because I feel I have the strength to persist in my sobriety and to stay abstinent because I see the result of bad behavior. And bad behavior was always inspired in me by liquor and drugs, man. So staying away from that, I feel stronger about that. I feel that it's all been kind of reinforced.
I don't know about what they use or what they don't use. I mean, that Kennedy person said today that he's 44 years sober, but he was a real bad heroin addict at one time, and that was garnering some praise at the hearing today.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hegseth, it was the same thing. I used to drink. Now I found Jesus, so I don't drink anymore.
Our secular meeting in Washington, one of his brothers used to come every once in a while. I know a little bit about that family. I'm not going to go into that, but I have been exposed to that family. But that's a different story. It's another more Washington tales, ridiculous as some of them are. But I do know for a fact that it appears that a great number of these people have been infected by and are being animated by human evil, the evil impulse that is being directed by an ignorant sociopath at the top. And although whether he's directing or Musk directing, or some people are even saying that this Vance person is directing. Well, somebody is, and it ain't Mephistopheles, all right? It's human ego, power, violence, greed, the animating greed of someone who would take money away from a poverty-stricken victim of adult diabetes without a foot and give some of that money to the wealthiest people on the planet, which is what they're doing, by the way. It's even a further desire to redistribute the little money there is for the people that aren't in the top 1% up to the top tiny fraction of 1% to give them even more. All of that stuff, when you add it together with a Nazi salute and, building detention beds in foreign lands for people that you believe they believe that those immigrants are demons. All right. Okay. I have a lot of experience with illegal immigrants living in a major metropolitan area all my life. And I had a lot of experience when my little kids were small with the immigrants that used to work in our home. One of whom was actually legal, who we paid taxes on. And why semi-legal, I don't know what her story was. But these people, most of them came here to earn a legitimate living and have a better life for them and their families than they could hope to have in the place that they fled from. All right. Now, some of them absolutely are gang members, cartel people, sex traffickers, murderers, whatever. But here's the dirty secret. The vast majority of murders, killers, drug dealers, and gang members were born right here in the good old USA. All right?
Yeah.
Our biggest problem with gangs and drugs is an American problem. And our problem with drugs, and the worldwide problem with drugs, is the United States of America appetite for dope, all right? Which has always been the animating market in the world for illegal narcotics trafficking and all the other evils that go along with it. So, cry me a fucking river about these poor people swimming in here to clean up somebody's house or work in somebody's kitchen. Or we were walking down the street, and I've got my own feelings about legal versus illegal. I won't go into all of that. I think it's far better to cross a border legally than illegally. But I was walking down the street and it was 99 degrees, and I saw 4 guys with a jackhammer and some pickaxes digging up a trench or something for one of my fancy cable hookups out by my building, one of my fiber optic or whatever the hell it is, hooky things, right? Mm-hmm. And I looked at my wife and I said, who in the hell would do this in this weather other than these guys? We've got all kinds of big construction projects going on around here. And I go by the construction projects when I'm actually doing exercise when the weather's warm, and I walk my wife to the metro, and then I walk around and I see all these guys. It's early in the morning, they're going in the construction sites. 95%, 8% of those guys came from somewhere else,
Yep.
and they're building our fucking buildings here. Who's gonna? Well, you go down that road. They're
Yeah.
not a threat. They're not anything but people who want to work mostly. And this he was on today about this poor, very tragic story about this poor girl in Georgia that was raped and murdered by some scumbag gang member from some place, right? And this Lincoln Riley lady, with poor lady, very sad, awful story, and taking that story and pumping it up and growing in evil every second while he's pumping up that story with that poor lady's mother sitting in the office in the audience, who got up and basically said, "Oh, I'm going to see her because Jesus and this and that," and all the Jesus people are in there, and they're pumping themselves up with this pure human evil. And the only way we can deal with this, Michael, is to be better people ourselves. Our good sense as atheists direct us to a higher standard of thought and action, because what these evil people are doing is not only illogical, it is wrong. Okay? Sometimes I think we atheists embody more of the King James Bible thingies I was reading you up front than anybody. Well, of course, Jimmy Carter. There's a few really good people that believe that, and I have to very much acknowledge the good people. I know a few really good people who live that sort of thing, and certainly the late President Carter was one of them. But what we've got right now are a bunch of rapacious, evil hypocrites clothing themselves in righteousness. And I can't think of any way to deal with it right now, except right now we need to be the best individuals we can be within the context we're talking about on this podcast. Remember, we're not talking about politics and political solutions here. There are other places to go to discuss that sort of thing. But what we're talking about is, how do we personally get through this and be as best as we can be? Okay?
Well, yeah, one way is to see and just recognize what we don't want to be. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
When you see a total lack of empathy, a total lack of understanding, a total lack of kindness towards other human beings, it's pretty obvious that I don't want to be that way. I want to be empathetic. I want to understand other people. I want to be kind. And so when you see that being done, it's just it's a good example of what not to be. Is what I'm trying to look at it that way, you know. But without being too self righteous about it. I mean,
No.
I'm just a humble little human being here, just trying to empathize and trying to be kind. Whereas, and when you see the opposite happening and the opposite being endorsed, and the opposite being cheered, it's very disheartening. It's very discouraging, and it is hard to hold on to it myself. I mean, like I said before, that sense of hopelessness and despair. I mean, because I see it harming other people much more than me. Yeah, I'm very privileged to my lifestyle right now, and I have no complaints. But to see it happening to so many other people directly, to see them harmed and suffering because of what these people are doing is very discouraging.
Well, the antidote to that starts with I think us those of us atheists, agnostics, whatever we call ourselves in this recovery thing, is like when you get sober, you start to see more of the value in the simple thing.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those simple things are connected to just simple human kindness.
Yeah.
Like the simplest, most basic thing. A decent human being is nice to little children and doggies. Okay? All right? Little children, number one, always very nice and very solicitous and very kind to every small child you meet.
Mm-hmm.
And a cute doggie that is not going to bite you. Most of them don't bite, but a cute doggie, all right, can make your whole day, right?
Sure.
We walk around here. We've got a richness in this neighborhood of very beautiful children and doggies. And we call it going out for kid and doggy therapy. All right. When you feel a little bit down because of all this awful shit, evil shit going on in the world, you could maybe go out for a walk and say hi to a kid and admire somebody's doggy and, see how happy it makes them when you tell them they have a beautiful doggy or a very smart and lovely child. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're always very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
And you're putting out something that's positive and getting something positive back. When your family member calls you, instead of if you're a decent human being, if it's like particularly if it's one of your kids, you can always make an effort to be positive about the good things in their life and reinforce the rightness of their decisions about what they're doing to further themselves in this crazy world. A simple thing rather than being critical or judgmental or whatever. I mean, likewise, you encounter someone in the workplace or someone else with a type of lifestyle that maybe you do not understand. You do not fully grasp everything that is involved in that lifestyle or that choice, gender choice or whatever, particularly this idea of gender choice. And you respect that person and are kind to that person and reinforce that person as a human being rather than turning them into some sort of demon. At the Trump rally before the inauguration, they had a whole segment they were putting up on the monitors there, and CNN turned away from it because it was so raw. And they were talking about transgender people, and they were putting up these giant sort of cartoon clownish faces of people they were saying were identified this way, and saying we're not going to let them make our children be like this. Okay.
Mm.
As if someone's mere existence is going to change somebody else's existence.
Mm.
These people are implying that some of our fellow citizens don't have the right to exist as people.
Yeah.
And if we as people treat our fellow citizens, even if we do not, I'm a cisgendered male old man. I don't fully understand some folks' lifestyle choices. Like, I don't understand my kid's attitude toward tattoos. I don't get it. But it's not my business to be judgmental and pejorative about other people's lifestyle choices. That's a simple thing. And if each one of us make that decision and start from there and little by little start doing that, maybe sooner or later, larger and larger numbers of people will say, these people are wrong doing this to their fellow human beings simply because they are, in fact, a certain way.
Mm.
None of my business the way they are. All I need to know is they're human beings. And if they're not infringing upon my rights directly, I have nothing to do with that choice, do I?
Yeah.
Nothing. Or even then, I don't have
Yeah.
anything to do with the choice.
Yeah.
So all this stuff is pretty damn simple, Michael. And, we can maybe start treating each other with some more love and gentleness and respect in the face of this tide of pure evil that is washing over us and doing things like building detention centers and taking people's human rights away and destroying people's livelihoods and taking generals' portraits down who served nobly and well in the Pentagon and, taking people who are under threat from terrorists, taking their security details away and, forcing large numbers of federal employees out of their employment, their honorable, safe, and productive employment simply because you want to take some money and put it in the pocket of some fucking thief who's already been given far more of the world's goods than any human could ever possibly deserve to have.
Mm.
So, little by little, one by one, we treat each other better. And all of a sudden, I think we start having a better attitude about ourselves.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty good behind this discussion.
And then it brings up hope, man. I mean, I think that it can't get much worse, and people are going to start seeing how bad it is, and seeing that it's much more important to have some empathy, understanding, and
Hope.
kindness and compassion. And because we're being shown now what it's like to have absolutely no empathy and no understanding, no compassion. So the hope is that by seeing how bad it's getting and how bad people are behaving, that we will come to the light and behave better ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, how ancient are these sentiments?
Yeah. Oh man, everything.
Love your neighbor as
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah. The golden rule.
Truly, I
Right?
tell you,
I mean,
whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me.
mhm.
I mean, how ancient is
Yeah.
that? All, I mean, it's like, all the biblical underpinnings are utterly ridiculous, but the idea of treating people with compassion and love is nothing short of timeless. Okay? And how, in the face of these evil people who clothe themselves in the garb of their God and hang these ugly fucking things around their neck that represent an iconography of nailing a human being to a piece of wood. What's that all about?
Yeah.
Your iconography is
Yeah.
nailing a human being to a
Capital
piece
punishment. Yeah.
yeah. Well, no, it's worse than. I mean, they're alive when they do that. They nail the human being. I mean, that to us atheists is really that sets us off on a whole other topic. If we were less charitable than we are, but it's like, where are we at? Okay, I think we're coming to a conclusion on this, Michael.
Yeah. Yeah.
Has this been a productive discussion?
Yeah, I think like I just said, I think we can at least try to hold on to a sense of hope in because we're seeing how bad people behave. There's a sense of hope that we will behave better and that everyone will see that bad behavior and behave better. And there will be a rise of empathy and understanding and compassion and kindness as a result of us going so far away from it. That's my hope anyway. That
Well,
we will see, we will come back around. That the pendulum will swing, and we
right,
will come back around to recognizing and appreciating those positive aspects of
right,
kindness towards humans. That's the
right,
bottom line.
right. Well, as I said, in my Facebook post, you know, before all this horror really set in, when you saw, I saw the full moon, and I put up the picture of the moon and said, you know, no, no matter what happens, the moon will come up over the
Yes.
earth, and life will continue, and we are part of the great arc of history, and history will certainly turn around in another direction.
Mhm.
Now, whether old gray haired people like us are around to see that turn is really not that important. But we do, in fact, I believe we know, and we could say with certainty that this is not forever. So killing ourselves as alcoholics and addicts over this is not a good thing. Okay? It is not an appropriate response to a force majeure situation, which in the fullness of time will prove to be temporary. Okay?
Yes.
All right? I just hope.
Time keeps moving. So
Right. Well, I just hope you and I don't end up down in Guantanamo first. I mean,
well,
I'm sort of selfish that way, but what it is what it is. But we're getting down, I guess, to wearing our welcome out with our wonderful listeners, and hopefully some of what we've said made some sense
I hope so.
and gave you some sort of semblance
Yeah.
of Michael's favorite word, which is
Hope.
hope. Okay, and
Hope.
and and brought us today more than ever down to the essence of what John and Yoko said in that famous poster that they put up in Times Square all those years ago, a copy of which I'm looking at on my wall right now, which is "War is over if you want it. Love and peace from John and Yoko,"
Mhm.
which certainly dates me, but wishing people some love in life and some peace in life is not a bad thing, is
It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
okay?
Yeah.
And we'll wish people a lovely good night and stay safe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
will wish you a fond good night, and we will see you
Peace and
again
love.
soon with peace and love
Peace and love. Peace and
in
love.
the
Yeah.
fullness of time.